What if the fastest way to get rich was not about hard work, luck, or genius, but about following ruthless secrets, written 500 years ago by a man who understood power better than anyone else? Imagine if true wealth is not created by kindness or chance, but by using the cold strategies of someone history has called dark, dangerous, and brutally honest about human nature. This is not just another video about money. This is a journey into the mind of Niccolò Machiavelli, the man whose name has become a symbol of cunning, strategy, and manipulation. Stay with me until the end, because you're about to hear advice most people will never dare to follow. And if you ignore it, you risk losing the one thing he valued above all: control over your own fortune. Machiavelli lived in Florence during the Renaissance, a time of art, war, and constant betrayal. Politicians rose and fell overnight. Kingdoms clashed, and every man with power faced enemies waiting to strike. Machiavelli was not a king, not a soldier, not a rich merchant. He was an observer, a thinker, and eventually, a political advisor. His masterpiece, The Prince, was written in exile after he was tortured and cast out of office. Some say it was a desperate attempt to win his way back into power. Others believe it was the truest guide ever written on how to survive when the world is ruled by ambition and greed. He looked at humans not as noble beings, but as selfish creatures who would lie, cheat, and betray whenever it suited them. He argued that leaders, and by extension, anyone seeking wealth, must accept this reality. According to Machiavelli, you don't become powerful by being good. You become powerful by understanding how people truly are, and by using that knowledge before they use it against you. This is why his advice has been called dark, because it strips away illusions and forces us to face what most people are too afraid to admit. People will abandon you if it benefits them, and wealth is never safe unless you protect it with strategy. Now, why should you keep watching? Because hidden in Machiavelli's words are principles that still apply today. They may not sound like the motivational slogans you usually hear. They are colder, sharper, and more dangerous. But they are also practical, and history has shown that those who dared to use them often rose to heights others only dreamed of. In this video, we will explore how his lessons about power and survival can be translated into the modern pursuit of wealth. You will learn why he believed fortune favors the bold, why appearances matter more than truth, and why alliances should never be trusted completely. You will also discover the little-known fact that Machiavelli himself was ruined by not following his own advice, a paradox that makes his teachings even more fascinating. Most people think Machiavelli only cared about manipulation. That is only half the story. He also believed in preparation, in controlling what you can while recognizing what you cannot. He warned against relying on luck, because fortune, as he described it, is like a raging river. If you do not build barriers and prepare, it will sweep everything away. For him, getting rich was never about gambling on chance. It was about creating strength, systems, and opportunities so that luck mattered less and less. This mindset alone separates those who remain at the mercy of events from those who bend events to their will. And yet, there is a darker side. Machiavelli suggested that to hold wealth, you must sometimes deceive, sometimes betray, sometimes appear virtuous while doing the opposite in secret. It is a chilling thought that morality might be a costume we wear only to gain trust, while the true game happens behind the mask. Some of his most shocking lines insist that it is better to be feared than loved, that keeping promises is optional if breaking them secures your survival, and that cruelty, if used wisely, can be more merciful in the long run than misplaced kindness. These are not easy lessons to hear, but they explain why his name has survived for centuries while so many others have been forgotten. So why should you, right now in this moment, give your attention to a man long dead? Because his insights are not about politics alone. They are about how people behave when wealth, power, and favor are at stake. His words cut through illusions, and if you stay until the end of this video, you will walk away with strategies that may disturb you, but will also sharpen your understanding of how money, influence, and human nature are tied together. This is knowledge that can protect you, empower you, and challenge the way you see the world. Welcome to Psych Algorithm, where we uncover the hidden truths that others are too afraid to reveal. If you're ready to explore Machiavelli's dark advice on the fastest way to get rich, then stay with us until the last word. And before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the lessons that could change the way you think about power, wealth, and survival forever. Before we talk about the specific strategies Machiavelli offers, we need to understand why he ties wealth and power together so tightly. For him, money was never just money. It was security, influence, and survival. In Renaissance Florence, fortunes were made and destroyed, not only by trade and banking, but by wars, conspiracies, and shifting alliances. To have wealth without power meant you were vulnerable, because someone stronger could take it from you. To have power without wealth meant you could not maintain armies, allies, or loyalty. Machiavelli saw this clearly, and in his works he repeats one central truth: power and wealth are not separate. They feed each other. In The Prince, he points out that rulers who lack resources cannot hold on to their states for long. Armies must be paid. Officials must be rewarded. Enemies must be outspent or crushed. In his Hose, riches and power were two sides of the same coin. A leader who did not secure both would eventually be undone. And while he spoke mainly about princes and republics, the same principle applied to individuals. To stay strong, to remain free from domination by others, one needed both the material foundation of wealth and the practical ability to wield influence. Without both, survival was uncertain. Machiavelli was also blunt about the nature of wealth. He did not see it as something earned through morality or fairness. He saw it as something captured, protected, and sometimes stolen, depending on the circumstances. Florence itself was proof of this. Great banking families like the Medici rose not just because of trade, but because they used money to buy power, and used power to protect their money. This cycle of wealth feeding power, and power feeding wealth, was the engine of Renaissance politics. Machiavelli, who watched it closely, knew that anyone who ignored this reality was doomed to lose what they had. He also believed that the pursuit of wealth demanded pragmatism. To him, clinging to ideals of fairness or generosity in all situations was dangerous. People were not angels. They were self-interested and often ungrateful. A prince, or any ambitious person, who gave away too much or relied too heavily on the goodwill of others, would soon find themselves exploited. Machiavelli argued that it was better to be ruthless when necessary than to risk weakness. Better to make hard choices that secure your position than to please everyone and end up powerless. This was not empty theory for him. He had seen Florence collapse under weak rulers who tried to be too kind or too trusting. He had witnessed how foreign powers like France and Spain trampled weaker states because those states were not strong enough to defend their wealth or independence. He learned that money by itself was not enough. You needed the will and the cunning to hold on to it. And power by itself was not enough. You needed wealth to make that power real. Machiavelli also pointed out that appearances mattered. A leader who looked wealthy and powerful inspired loyalty and fear, even if the reality was different. In his time, processions, displays of wealth, and public festivals were not just celebrations. They were political tools. They told the people that their ruler was strong, capable, and untouchable. Without such displays, rivals and enemies would sense weakness. Even here, wealth served as armor, a shield against doubt and betrayal. But there was another side to this link between wealth and power: the constant threat of envy. Machiavelli noted that the rich and powerful always attracted rivals who wanted to overthrow them. The more you had, the more others wanted to take it. This is why he stressed vigilance. Wealth had to be guarded, sometimes harshly, because human nature would always drive others to plot against those who possessed more. For him, generosity could be fatal if it created expectations you could not maintain. Stability came not from pleasing others, but from securing yourself so firmly that they could not touch you. What makes Machiavelli's perspective striking is how modern it feels. In his day, princes bought loyalty with gold and soldiers. Today, billionaires buy loyalty with influence, corporations, and control of markets. The principle is the same. Without resources, no one listens to you. With resources, you shape the game. Machiavelli simply stripped away the polite illusions and said it plainly. Wealth without power is fragile. Power without wealth is empty. Only when the two work together can someone truly be secure. For Machiavelli, this was not about greed. It was about survival. In the brutal world he lived in, cities fell, families were wiped out, fortunes were erased overnight. He knew that you had to understand the dark bond between money and power, and once you saw it, you could never look at wealth as just coins or property again. It became the foundation of everything: trust, loyalty, safety, and influence. Without it, you were at the mercy of others. With it, you had a chance to bend fortune to your will. Before we move deeper into Machiavelli's lessons, we need to face one of his most unsettling truths. He believed that fortune, or luck, is a force that tempts men into laziness. Quote, can make someone rich for a while, but it cannot hold them there. Machiavelli wrote, "He who has relied least on fortune is established the strongest." What does that mean? It means that if your wealth depends only on luck, it will vanish as quickly as it arrived. He compared fortune to a raging river. Sometimes it flows calmly, sometimes it bursts its banks, sweeping away everything in its path. If you build no barriers, if you make no preparation, the flood will destroy you. But if you are clever enough to channel it, to build dams and defenses, then the same river that wrecks others will power your mill, water your crops, and give you life. This principle cuts straight into the heart of modern wealth. People dream of lottery tickets, miracle investments, sudden fame, or a single lucky break. But Machiavelli would shake his head at this. He'd say luck will abandon you the moment you need it most. He would tell you to build strength with your own hands. Build assets that last. Build systems that generate returns even when fortune turns against you. Do not place your future on what you cannot control. Depend instead on discipline, structure, and preparation. That is the difference between the man who keeps his fortune and the man who loses it. Machiavelli's lesson here is harsh, but it is honest. Florence was filled with men who trusted too much in chance. They borrowed heavily, hoping trade winds would favor their ships. They gambled on alliances, hoping foreign kings would keep their promises. Again and again they were betrayed. Machiavelli saw this pattern and gave a warning. If you want to be strong, trust less in others, trust less in fortune, and trust more in what you build for yourself. In wealth, this means creating businesses, investments, and skills that endure beyond one lucky break. The ones who last are those who stand even when the river of fortune rages against them. But Machiavelli also understood something else. Fortune does not disappear. It will present itself in moments, and those who are ready can seize it. That is why his next principle is about decisive action. He admired leaders who acted boldly when opportunity appeared, even if the risks were high. He believed hesitation was deadly. In his eyes, those who waited for certainty lost to those who moved first. Think of it this way. Fortune is like a door that opens suddenly, without warning, and then slams shut just as quickly. The one who hesitates, who debates too long, will find themselves staring at a closed door. But the one who acts boldly, even without all the answers, may step through and gain everything. In wealth, this translates to spotting gaps before others do. The entrepreneur who notices a trend early and moves quickly reaps reward. The investor who sees a shift in the market and acts before the crowd secures gains. The worker who takes a calculated risk to move into a new field often leaps ahead while others remain stuck. Machiavelli's admiration for boldness was not about recklessness. He did not suggest blind leaps into the dark. He praised leaders who prepared carefully and then struck swiftly when the chance arrived. For him, opportunity is wasted if you hesitate to act, and in the pursuit of wealth, this principle is timeless. To wait until everything feels safe is to wait till the chance is gone. Fortune favors the one who moves while others doubt. But there is another layer to Machiavelli's teachings. He knew that action alone was not enough. Wealth and power could be built, but to keep them, one must control perception. He wrote that it is not necessary to be truly virtuous, only to appear so. Appearance, in his mind, carried more weight than reality. A ruler who seemed generous, merciful, and strong would inspire loyalty even if in private he was ruthless and calculating. People judged by what they saw, not by what was hidden. This idea remains as sharp today as it was 5 centuries ago. In the modern world, people invest in stories, brands, and reputations. A company can lose billions not because its product has failed, but because its reputation has been damaged. A leader can rise to fame not because of deep substance, but because of the image they project. For Machiavelli, controlling perception was not lying for its own sake. It was survival. If people believed in your strength, your honesty, or your vision, then they would support you, even if behind the curtain you acted very differently. In wealth building, perception is capital. It can be worth more than gold. Investors pour money into companies they perceive as valuable. Clients choose services they believe are prestigious. The image becomes the truth in their minds. Machiavelli's lesson warns us that ignoring perception is dangerous. You may have the best idea, the best plan, the most solid foundation. But if no one perceives it as valuable, it will fail. On the other hand, even a weak foundation can hold for a long time if the image is carefully crafted and controlled. This is the dark art of branding, of influence, of reputation management. And it is exactly what Machiavelli meant when he said that appearance often matters more than reality. Yet he did not stop there. Another of his core principles was about alliances. He believed that no one could rule or get rich alone. Alliances were necessary, but they were never to be trusted blindly. Machiavelli wrote that friends today could be enemies tomorrow, and loyalty often vanished when fortunes changed. So alliances had to be managed like tools, useful, but dangerous if misused. In wealth terms, this means networks, partnerships, and deals. They can accelerate your rise. A partner can open doors. A connection can bring resources. An alliance can multiply influence. But Machiavelli would whisper in your ear, "Be careful. Do not give away too much. Do not depend entirely on others. Reward when it benefits you. Punish when necessary. And always keep the power in your own hands." Alliances, he argued, should be temporary, shifting as circumstances change. To tie yourself too tightly to another's fate was to invite ruin. This sounds cold, but again it reflects the world he lived in. In Renaissance Italy, cities formed alliances one year and betrayed them the next. Families joined forces only to stab each other when fortunes shifted. Machiavelli studied this and concluded that loyalty was rare, self-interest was constant, and only those who managed alliances with clear eyes survived. In modern business, the same logic appears. Partnerships break, mergers collapse, allies become rivals. To succeed, one must treat alliances with both gratitude and caution, always ready to adapt when loyalty falters. Finally, Machiavelli offered perhaps his darkest lesson about wealth and power. Threats must be neutralized. Rivals, competitors, or enemies cannot be allowed to linger. A threat ignored today becomes a danger tomorrow. Machiavelli advised rulers to either win over their enemies, suppress them completely, or remove them. Half measures, he warned, only make the enemy stronger. Applied to wealth, this means that competition must be managed decisively. A business that allows rivals to undercut it without response will soon lose its market. A brand that ignores critics may find itself destroyed by reputation damage. A person who allows others to block their advancement may never rise. Machiavelli's advice here is chilling but practical. Reduce competition where you can, neutralize those who threaten your position, and never assume goodwill will protect you. But with this advice comes danger. To act too harshly risks backlash. To silence rivals completely may create resentment that explodes later. Machiavelli himself knew this. He advised cruelty, but only when necessary, and only when it would secure long-term stability. He believed the greatest mistake was to appear weak, yet he also knew that reckless violence or betrayal could destroy you as quickly as hesitation could. The art was in balance. Strike when you must, forgive when it serves you, but never allow threats to grow unchecked. Each of these principles, resisting fortune, seizing opportunity, shaping perception, using alliances, and neutralizing threats, forms part of Machiavelli's cold but enduring vision of how wealth and power survive. He forces us to ask questions most people avoid. Are we relying too much on luck? Do we hesitate when we should act? Do we control how others see us? Or do we leave it to chance? Do we manage allies with clarity? Or do we trust too easily? Do we deal with rivals firmly? Or do we let them circle close? Machiavelli did not write to comfort. He wrote to reveal the harsh mechanics of survival. And in the pursuit of wealth, his words still cut deep, reminding us that the road to riches is rarely paved with kindness alone. It is paved with preparation, boldness, perception, strategy, and sometimes ruthless decisions that others are too timid to make. Machiavelli believed fortune was not a mystery god, but a force that could be wrestled with, half within our control and half beyond it. He compared fortune to a woman, unpredictable and wild, often favoring those who were bold enough to seize her. For him, the timid and cautious were rarely rewarded. He calculated that fortune is 50% controllable through preparation, strategy, and courage, while the other 50% is left to chance. But that half that can be controlled makes all the difference between men who merely survive and men who rise to dominance. In his writings, he praised leaders who were willing to take risks, even when the outcome was uncertain. To him, risk was not the enemy. Hesitation was. A prince who played safe, who feared mistakes, often missed the one decisive chance that could secure his rule forever. In wealth terms, this idea holds enormous power. Those who take calculated risks, whether in business, investment, or innovation, are often the ones who become richest, not because every risk pays off, but because their courage gives them access to opportunities that fear will always block. Machiavelli, however, did not glorify blind recklessness. He respected preparation. A bold strike should not be an unplanned leap into chaos. It should be the action of someone who has studied the terrain, weighed the dangers, and still decided that the rewards outweighed the risks. Boldness, for him, was not ignorance of danger, but mastery over it. And here lies the heart of his lesson. Fortune favors the bold, but only when boldness is sharpened with calculation. Consider how this plays out in wealth creation. The entrepreneur who launches a new idea before others see its value takes a risk. The investor who moves against the tide, buying when others are fearful, risks failure, but can reap fortune. The worker who quits security to build a venture risks collapse, but if prepared, may escape mediocrity. Each of these reflects Machiavelli's view that waiting for perfect certainty is a trap. Certainty never comes. Fortune rewards the one who moves when others hesitate. Still, he also acknowledged the role of adaptability. Even the boldest plan can be wrecked by fortune's storms. A prince who cannot bend, who cannot adapt when chance turns against him, will shatter. The same applies to wealth. Risks do not always succeed, and those who cannot shift strategies or recover from setbacks soon lose everything. Machiavelli admired resilience, the capacity to take blows, to rebuild, and to strike again when fortune opens another door. This resilience is as important as boldness, for without it, the bold man becomes only another ruined gambler. Once risk has delivered wealth, however, Machiavelli turns to another principle: the need to protect it. Wealth left exposed is wealth waiting to be stolen. He believed that riches and power must be secured, organized, and defended through systems and institutions. In his political writings, he emphasized the strength of states, the rule of law, and the machinery of government that kept power stable. Without such structures, rulers rose and fell with the wind. With them, even weak rulers could hold on longer. Applied to personal wealth, this principle is clear. Money is not safe if it exists only in fragile forms. Loose coins, unsecured assets, unprotected investments. To hold wealth over time, one must establish systems, legal protections, diversified assets, corporate structures, and safeguards that make fortune harder to overturn. Just as a prince builds fortresses and laws to protect his rule, a modern seeker of wealth must govern their assets with foresight. Otherwise, one stroke of bad fortune can undo years of effort. Machiavelli would argue that the governance of wealth is as critical as the gaining of it. A man who wins riches by boldness but fails to guard them is like a conqueror who wins a city and leaves its gates open. Systems, in his view, transform fleeting gains into lasting power. And just as he valued institutions in the state, he would insist that those who desire wealth must think structurally, not just individually. Wealth that outlives fortune is wealth protected by law, strategy, and planning. But here we arrive at a darker warning. Machiavelli never hid the dangers that come with his advice. Ruthlessness and boldness, while powerful, carry moral costs. He often wrote of the lesus evil, meaning that leaders were sometimes forced to choose between cruelty and weakness. In his world, choosing weakness was fatal, so cruelty, if necessary, became the lesser evil. Yet such choices stain the soul. A man who deceives, betrays, or crushes rivals may gain riches, but he risks losing trust, relationships, and peace of mind. Machiavelli understood this tension well. He admitted that rulers who follow his advice may not be loved, and may even be hated. Yet he insisted that survival mattered more than affection. In terms of wealth, this raises a heavy question. To what extent should one be willing to sacrifice morality for riches? The tactics of deception, manipulation, and suppression can succeed in the short run, but they also plant seeds of resentment that may grow into rebellion. Many powerful figures in history fell not because they lacked wealth, but because their ruthless methods eventually turned allies into enemies. He also warned of betrayal. The man who builds alliances and uses manipulation too freely may one day face the same in return. The one who silences rivals may create martyrs. The one who abandons morality entirely may find himself rich but surrounded by enemies and haunted by mistrust. Machiavelli would not deny this. He would say instead, choose carefully, strike with purpose, and when forced to act immorally, do it cleanly and decisively so it does not return to haunt you. To see how this plays out, consider modern examples. A businessman who takes ruthless shortcuts to dominate a market may succeed for a time, but scandals and lawsuits may later destroy both his reputation and his fortune. Yet another who takes risks, builds strong systems, and manages perception skillfully may rise to global influence. Sometimes those who embraced dark tactics gained everything until the backlash swept them away. Others who balanced Machiavellian cunning with restraint managed to build empires that still stand today. For instance, there are leaders who used perception brilliantly, building brands that became larger than life. They controlled how the world saw them, using image as a shield and sword. Some did it ethically, projecting patent and vision. Others did it deceptively, hiding weakness and corruption. The outcomes varied. Those who used dark tactics without restraint often faced collapse, while those who blended cunning with genuine strength managed to endure. The same appears in alliances. Partnerships can elevate someone to heights unreachable alone. Yet history is full of broken alliances, betrayals and downfalls. A Machiavellian figure who builds allies but keeps control, rewarding when useful and punishing betrayal, often prospers longer than one who trusts too much. But even here, caution is needed. Too much ruthlessness in dealing with partners may isolate you, while too much dependence may enslave you. The balance, Machiavelli suggests, is the art of survival. These examples show that his teachings are double-edged. They can lift you or destroy you depending on how they are applied. Which brings us to his final point. Not all of his advice is meant to be followed blindly. Machiavelli did not write as a moral guide. He wrote as a realist. He stripped away illusions and showed the harsh mechanics of power. But he left it to the reader to decide how far they would go. This means each principle must be filtered. Some lessons, like reducing dependence on luck, seizing opportunity boldly, and protecting wealth with systems, can be applied without cruelty. They are practical, empowering, and ethical if used wisely. Others, like deception, manipulation, or ruthless suppression of rivals, are more dangerous. They may secure wealth, but at what cost? They may bring riches, but strip away humanity. Machiavelli forces us to confront the question directly. What are you willing to sacrifice for wealth? Do you want riches at any cost? Or do you want wealth that aligns with your values? His advice can sharpen your vision, helping you see dangers others ignore, but it can also tempt you into choices that darken your soul. He does not give easy answers. He gives tools, and it is up to you to decide whether to wield them with caution or abandon. In this, his genius remains alive. He reminds us that fortune is wild, wealth is fragile, and power is never secured without strategy. He shows us that boldness, preparation, and perception can elevate us, while weakness, hesitation, and blindness will destroy us. Yet he leaves us with the warning that survival gained through darkness may not always be worth the price it demands. The lesson is not just how to get rich. It is how to see the forces that govern wealth and power with clear, unsparing eyes. When we step back and look at Machiavelli's advice, a few things stand out with striking clarity. First, fortune can never be trusted. The strongest path to wealth is building systems, assets, and strategies that do not collapse when luck turns against you. Second, bold action almost always outshines hesitation. The person who dares to seize opportunities before others are even aware of them often takes the prize. Third, perception and reputation are powerful currency. What people believe about your value can become as important as the actual value you hold. Fourth, threats, rivals, and risks cannot be ignored. They must be handled with strategy, sometimes gently, sometimes decisively. But above all, Machiavelli forces us to confront a difficult truth. There is a cost to ruthless ambition. The question is not whether his advice works. History shows it often does. The question is whether you are willing to pay the moral price it demands. So, as you think about the fastest way to get rich, ask yourself, is wealth worth everything if it costs your peace, your relationships, or even your humanity? Or can you take Machiavelli's sharp insights, filter them through wisdom, and create a version of power that builds without destroying? If this video made you think, then give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe to Psych algorithm. More insights are waiting for you and you won't want to miss them.